Welcome to this explainer. We're about to go on a global tour to unpack the frankly bizarre and drastically different ways the world handles incarceration. Look, if you think a prison is just a standard concrete building with iron bars, well, the data we're going to look at today is going to completely shatter that assumption. We're talking about facilities that range from literal luxury cabins to freezing, middle-of-nowhere island fortresses. You are free, but you're not free. That's exactly how an inmate actually described Norway's Bastøy prison. Picture this, a facility sitting on an island just 50 miles from Oslo, and it's so incredibly relaxed that inmates are spending their days fishing, playing tennis, and yeah, even sunbathing on the beach. They live in these wooden cabins. And get this, what's even more astonishing is that the guards literally leave the island overnight. They just trust the inmates to take care of themselves. Now, that stark quote brings us directly to the philosophical core of today's explainer. We really need to evaluate the global data to figure out the actual purpose of prison. So, as we analyze these different systems together, I want you to keep this question right in the back of your mind. Are these global institutions designed purely to punish wrongdoers, or are they engineered to actually fix the underlying problem of crime? Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Great Prison Divide. We're looking at the absolute extremes of incarceration here. So Norway fundamentally believes that treating inmates like humans is the key to preventing reoffending. Beyond Bastøy, they've invested an astonishing $252 million to build the Halden facility. Inside, you've got violent offenders cooking their own meals with actual, real knives, they have flat-screen TVs, and they're even recording music in top-tier studios. And the guards, they're completely unarmed, heavily female by design, which is meant to reduce aggression, and they actually sit down to eat lunch and play sports with the inmates. Now, let's look at the massive contrast this creates with the United States. Take ADX Florence in Colorado. You might know it as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. It is meticulously designed for crushing isolation, holding the most dangerous threats out there, like cartel bosses such as El Chapo. We're talking 7 by 12-foot concrete cells for up to 23 hours a day. The beds and stools, poured concrete. You can't weaponize them because you literally can't move them. Even the tiny 4-inch windows are specifically designed to strip away any spatial awareness of where these guys are in the prison. And this divide becomes even more terrifying when we bring Russia into the picture. Consider Paddock Island. It's a Russian prison, essentially, in the middle of a freezing lake, housing inmates like the notorious cannibal Alexander Bychov. The isolation here is so absolute that the prison's own psychologist actually documented that after just a few years, personalities begin to visibly deteriorate. By the time an inmate hits 25 years, psychological destruction is basically guaranteed. So you contrast that bleak, relentless cold with Norway's cozy recording studios, and you've really got the absolute poles of global incarceration. Moving right along to Section 2, luxury and family life. Let's look at some really unconventional prisons. Take a look at France's La Santé prison. This place recently made headlines for housing a former French president because, well, they have an entire VIP wing. Now, the rest of the country's prison system is the third most overcrowded in the entire EU, running at double capacity with inmates literally packed 3 to a tiny room. But the VIPs? They get what are essentially private apartments. We're talking 10 by 10 cells, private bathrooms, and they can even rent a personal fridge for €750 and a TV for $14.50. Spain, on the other hand, takes a totally different approach to human connection. At the Aranjuez prison just south of Madrid, they have 36 family cells designed specifically so entire families can actually serve time together. It works like this. After couples pass a 2-month observation period to prove they can co-parent safely, they're allowed to raise their child inside the prison up until the age of 3. The cells have cribs, the walls are painted with Disney characters, and there's even a nursery school with an outdoor playground right there on the grounds. All right, Section 3, Inmate-Run Criminal Cities. This is all about total self-governance. Check this out. This is San Pedro Prison in Bolivia, and it operates as a literal inmate-run city of about 3,000 people. It runs entirely on its own real estate market. Inmates actually have to buy, sell, or rent their own cells, which can range anywhere from cramped multi-person rooms to outright luxury apartments featuring hot tubs and city views. And shockingly, around 200 children live and go to school inside these walls. I mean, before a recent crackdown, inmates were charging tourists up to $57 just to stay overnight. They even had exclusive sponsorship deals with Coca-Cola for umbrellas and tables, and they run a soccer betting league, pulling in $20,000 a year. But taking self-governance to its absolute extreme is Tolcaran prison in Venezuela. For 20 years, a transnational gang boss completely hijacked this facility, literally using it as his global headquarters. It wasn't until a massive raid by 11,000 soldiers in 2023 that authorities uncovered the pure absurdity going on inside. They found a professional baseball field, steak restaurants, betting parlors, a nightclub, a private zoo with flamingos, by the way, and even Bitcoin mining machines. Which brings us to Section 4, the unorthodox and extreme outliers, focusing on some truly unconventional methods. 58 million. That's the number of views the Cebu Provincial Detention Center in the Philippines gained back in 2007. So, a security advisor there decided to convert their regular marching exercises into a full-blown dance number. The result? 1,500 inmates in orange jumpsuits performing a highly choreographed dance to Michael Jackson's Thriller. It actually became one of the first truly massive viral videos on the internet, and the whole shebang was done in the name of a rehabilitation exercise. From viral dances to brutal restraint, our next number is 33. That is the weight, in pounds, of the iron shackles that were routinely welded onto the legs of death row inmates at Thailand's Bangkok Central Prison. Up until 2013, every single new inmate had to wear iron shackles for 3 months. But those on death row, they had these 33-pound weights permanently welded on for years. And they were only removable with a literal wheel cutter. Next up is 15. Out of the 780 people historically held by the U.S. military at the Guantanamo Bay detention camp in Cuba, only 15 detainees remain as of January 2025. And get this, 3 of them have actually been officially cleared for release, but they're classified as forever prisoners simply because they have nowhere else to go. Now, navigating a really complex legal gray area, Guantanamo Bay is actually undergoing a massive shift. Historically, it was utilized to hold major national security threats, some of whom, it's been reported, were subjected to torture prior to arriving. But the facility is now pivoting. Based on a January 2025 executive order signed by President Trump, the camp's separate operations center is slated for a massive expansion to hold up to 30,000 immigration detainees. So they're giving a huge, brand new use to a facility that multiple past administrations had actually attempted to close down. Shifting gears and looking at data collected by the UN and satellite imagery, we find North Korea's Camp 14. Honestly, this is less of a prison and way more of a forced labor camp, holding up to 43,000 individuals. But what is truly staggering here is something called the 3-generation rule. The regime imprisons not just the accused, but their children and their grandchildren. Because of this policy, countless individuals are literally born as inmates inside the camp, living their entire lives working in coal mines and factories without ever knowing what freedom is. And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, punishment or rehabilitation. Let's analyze the data. The statistics present a pretty stark reality here. Norway spends roughly $125,000 a year per inmate. That's about 5 times more than the United States, which spends about $25,000. But look at the return on that investment. Norway's luxury rehabilitation model results in a recidivism rate of just 20% within 2 years. Meanwhile, the U.S. model, which is heavily focused on punishment and isolation, sees over 50% of its prisoners return behind bars within 3 years. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital thought to ponder based on the data we've covered today. If the ultimate goal of the justice system is to create a safer society for everyone, who is actually winning here? Are our prisons built just to satisfy a deep human desire for punishment, or should they be engineered to actually cure the disease of crime? Thank you so much for exploring this data with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.